So I've heard people say they use storytelling in their messaging, but what does that truly mean? Are they using fairy tales? Are they making these stories up? Are they using true stories? Where do they find these stories? Well, if you stick around, I'm going to show you 3 plots that you can look for in everyday interactions to make your storytelling more impactful. So this is coming from the book Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. Storytelling is one of the best ways to make your content stick. Stories can rehearse events in your head before they actually happen. They can inspire you to overcome great obstacles. But how do you find your stories? Well, there's 3 plots you can look for that come across in everyday events. And once you know these 3 plots, you're going to find the stories you need to communicate your message. There's the challenge plot, the connectivity plot, and then the creativity plot. So let's take a look at each one. All right, we're going to start with the challenge plot. And this is the story where the protagonist overcomes huge obstacles to be able to reach their goal. This is the David and Goliath story. So you've got the little boy who goes up against the giant and he kills the giant with his slingshot. You think about the story of Rocky, an unknown boxer nobody thought could win a title. It's a story about grit and determination. It's inspiring, and it's been passed on for many years. And that's why the underdog story or the challenge story is so popular. It motivates you, it encourages you to take on obstacles that you didn't know you could, and otherwise you would have just said, like, I'm throwing in the towel. The second kind of plot is the connection plot. So think of the Good Samaritan. And if you're not familiar with the Good Samaritan, it's the story of a man who was robbed and beaten. And a religious man walks by, passes over him, doesn't help him out. A priest walks by, doesn't help him, he just keeps walking. But the person that stops and helps is actually a Samaritan, somebody who has a social gap that couldn't be larger, somebody that you would not suspect to help this guy. And it's a story that talks about connection. In a lot of ways, it brings people together. People that normally wouldn't be brought together to achieve a goal. Another example of this would be like the show Undercover Boss. If you've seen that show, it's a CEO who will dress up as a common frontline employee, go through the daily struggles, learn about the adversities that they face, and then at the end, they reveal that they're the CEO, they're the boss. It shows new perspectives into some of the challenges that their employees face. It's a great show because it brings 2 different paradigms together and presents new ways to challenge perspectives. So that connection story is one that brings us together. The last plot I want to talk about is the creative plot. This is where a team or an individual is faced with a unique challenge. Through that creative problem solving, they're able to make a breakthrough and solve the problem. A good example of this would be like Netflix. So Netflix started to compete with Blockbuster. They decided they were going to remove late fees. That's how Blockbuster made a lot of its money. But by removing these late fees, Netflix was able to solve a long-standing problem and truly change the industry altogether. Another example would be like a team that can't hit a budget. So they have to get a lot accomplished, but they have no money to put into it. So they come together and eliminate unnecessary steps in a process. So in the end, they're able to accomplish more with less, and productivity increases. I also think about like the movie Apollo 13. You have these engineers who have to save these astronauts with limited resources. They come together and they come up with a creative solution to do that. These are creativity stories or creativity plots, and they tell you that you can solve a problem if you get creative. Think outside the box is the common message for these. So there you go, 3 plots that will help you be a better storyteller. You don't have to make these stories up. If you know where to look for them and you know what you're looking for, they pop up every day. You see people that overcome enormous challenges to make a breakthrough and solve a problem. You find people, teams that are working together to solve a common goal, and those teams really don't normally work together. Or maybe you find the creativity story, where people have to solve a problem with a limited amount of resources. They're able to do so, and then they completely change a process. These 3 plots will help you find better stories. So now you know what to look for. Go out and look for it. This is the last video of the series I'm making from the book Made to Stick, and I hope you've enjoyed this series. If you haven't had a chance, please go back and rewatch or watch any of the videos you might have missed. Please be sure to drop a comment with a story that's had a profound impact on your life, or a common everyday scenario you ran into that has powerful storytelling capabilities. I'd like to know. I hope you've enjoyed. This is your communication space.